welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we still call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
What? Have we started?
How you doing today, Joe?
I guess I'm doing okay. I didn't realize we were started. Boy, Cory never gives us any warning here.
I just kind of pop up, don't I?
Yeah, kind of like it. You're not really a person. You're just a balloon on my window.
Well, I was thinking more that I'm just, one of those things that pop up on the internet and you keep trying to get rid of it, like a pop-up ad or a sound ad that won't shut up.
I like your profile. I think it's sexy. Add me to your Skype profile.
No one's asked that this week, so I'm wondering if maybe the cow isn't as sexy as it used to be.
It's a little kid. You're scaring people.
Well, that's good. And Jin Wicked's with us again. How you doing today, Jen?
I'm all right.
She's all right.
Joe.
Nobody worry about. So good.
I'm all right now that I haven't been overfed pizza until I wanted to puke.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yes. Yeah, because we kept shoveling it into your mouth.
Yes, she had that guilty look on her face that she didn't. All this food I must eat.
You ordered a pizza to eat before the pizza.
Joe, can you please to explain the concept of pizza fries?
No, it's a pizza-size thing, but it's like you get the pizza crust and they put a lot of cheese and a lot of garlic on it.
Just like they put Italian bread. No, stop. It's not a fucking fry. You said pizza fries, and I thought, this is going to be like fucking French fries with like mozzarella cheese on it and
Listen,
pepperoni
Texas
or
Chicky
right?
Poo, just because you're not used to Midwest cuisine doesn't mean we're right and you're wrong.
Joe, stop it.
I'm pretty sure down in Texas a taco means more than just
something
you pick up at Taco Bell.
It was a fucking pizza crust. With fucking cheese on it.
We got one with white sauce.
And I'm like, how is this not a pizza? It looks like a pizza that's cut into strips.
It doesn't
and you're
taste
like,
it's
not a pizza. It doesn't have sauce on it.
Italian garlic bread.
And then you know what they fucking did? They brought a bowl of fucking sauce.
When the moon's picture, I like the big pizza
So you fucking put the sauce on top of the cheese instead of underneath it, and that somehow makes it not a pizza.
Well, no, because you don't have to have sauce with it.
And I managed to eat like a third of this shit.
Man,
and then they put it into a fucking box.
I still got some upstairs. Maybe I'll fry it up and eat it.
And then they bring a whole nother fucking pizza.
Now that was a pizza with red sauce and cheese, not so much garlic.
And then they brought tiny ice cream cones, and it was like that fucking scene at the end of the Monty Python movie with the giant fat man, and they give him the little mint. And he's like, no, I can't eat it. And they're like, eat it, and he fucking explodes. That was me.
Yeah, I didn't even say you ate like a pig last night. You're kind of embarrassing.
I haven't eaten that much in an entire week.
Well, you're in Minnesota now. Learn to eat. We got to take her to a booyah or something. She'll really love that.
Oh, no, she's from Texas. She knows of things like the Golden Corral.
Just because it says all you can eat doesn't mean you have to eat all.
You know what? I know what Golden Corral is. Does the term feedlot mean anything to you?
We call it.
Yes, we have fucking Golden Corral in Texas.
It's frightening. It's a frightening place.
We had one in Anchorage. The only difference with Old Country Buffet is you don't need your teeth to eat. Of course, if the good people at Old Country Buffet and Golden Corral want to send us free passes, we'll be sure to go and give you guys a favorable review.
Are we just going to have some running gag where I hang up on you guys every week now?
Sure, why not?
It's not. All right, calm down.
What's more fun when she's riled up or drunk?
I'm not drinking tonight. It's fucking serious.
Okay. It sounded like a threat. Other than the food quantity, what did you think about the quality?
I thought it was not worth the wait. I've had much better pizza. I'm sorry to disappoint.
Well, you got to order something other than cheese.
No, I really don't, Joe, because all I eat is cheese pizza every fucking where. So if I tell you this cheese pizza is better than that cheese pizza, it's because it's got better pizza sauce and better crust. It's not masking the essential base of the pizza by dumping a bunch of onions and peppers and God knows what else you eat on there.
That's really a sad state of pizza in your universe. Pizza's
if my mic didn't cost $100, I would have dropped it just then.
Oh, mine does. I drop it all the time.
All right, kids, enough fighting about pizza.
Why not? Chicago and New York been fighting about pizza for years.
No.
This could be a new segment. We'll take
pizza with a fucking knife and fork. Let's fight about that.
Let's go to different pizza places and we can review it. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm not getting on the train anymore.
Everything that particular pizza place has their own unique pizza. You go to a different one, like Savoy's or Skinner's or Lucha, what's that, Punch Pizza? They're all a little different. Unlike if you go to like Domino's or Pizza Hut, where it's pretty much the same as you go across country.
Well, those aren't pizza. I think we can all agree to say that Domino's and Papa John's and all those that's what you eat when you have no money.
Fuck you! I will eat pizza from the Target food court all I fucking want.
Oh, I love their pizza.
It's from Pizza Hut, and it's little and adorable.
Oh, this pizza's got to be adorable.
And I can't overeat because it's very tiny.
See, that was the thing. Corey bought you the small. You should have got the mini pizza like I got.
He should have told me he was fucking ordering pre-pizza pizza, and I wouldn't have ordered anymore.
You weren't really listening when he ordered, were you?
No, she explained.
She said, order me?
I said I wanted cheese pizza, and he should have said, well, the fucking appetizer is cheese pizza. You just got do-it-yourself sauce.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I had to fucking take a nap. I was so sick when I got home.
You know how I say I don't like to leave the house? This is why. So now that we know how everybody is...
Fine.
We were given some comics to review. Are we going to yell at each other and fight about that?
I think that would be fun. Something.
I think I want to go home.
You are home.
I think I want to go deeper into my home. Well, some nice people gave us some comics to look at and review. The first one is Impure Blood, and you can see it at impurebloodwebcomic.com. Joe, did you get a chance to look through it?
Well, first of all, you didn't tell me it was a 100-page graphic novel.
Holy shit, yeah. I'm like at page 70, and I just started scrolling, and this thing doesn't end.
And it's volume 1. But you answered the first question I had because I was curious about the layout. And when I get a PDF of something, I'm always assuming that they're just giving me a copy of something that they're going to publish in like a comic book or a graphic novel format. I get the feeling with this particular one, they're not actually going to do that just because of the way they have the page layout, which is actually very good for a webcomic. So I got to give them a compliment on that. I mean, they lay it out to be seen on a computer monitor versus sometimes like with the second one where it was made as a comic book. So you either got to shrink the page down so you can fit the whole page on the monitor or just blow it up so you look at one monitor, one column at a time or one panel at a time. Is that true, Mr. Strode?
It is available as a webcomic, but it also is available on Amazon as a print trade paperback.
I'd be curious to see how that would work.
Published by somebody, or is it one of the like self-published or print on demand?
It's print on demand. The webcomic has set it all up so that you can buy it from them directly. And they have Volume 1 and Volume 2 available. Joe, what did you think of the art?
It was okay. It was clean, stylish, consistent. It didn't distract from the story. I could tell who the characters were, you know, page to page. I didn't know who the characters were because as usual, they threw you in the beginning of a fray and hope that it contains your interest long enough to become interesting. Kudos to Jin for making it to 70. I made it to page 15, and when I realized I still had, 90 pages to go, I thought, you know what? I'm going to stock this one away and read it later.
I want to say the first criticism that really jumped out at me, and I want to preface that by saying that I see potential for really good art in here, but it needs more polish. There's some rough, I can see some pretty blatant cut and paste in a few. I noticed, I'm not looking for it, but I did notice some cut and paste in a few places. Whoever put this together, I've just noticed the font changes at some point when I scrolled through around, I guess, page 70-ish. They really should have gone back and redone the font and the text in the dialogue bubbles towards the beginning. There's a lot of text right on the edge of bubbles, and this isn't Comic Sans, but it's pretty close as far as font quality. The words are too far apart and the spacing just doesn't look very good. I don't know why people quit hand lettering comics because it looks so much better, but it looks like it improves about halfway through, 2/3 of the way through. They really should have gone back and redone the dialogue in the earlier comics because it just, for the art being kind of rough but looking like this artist has a lot of potential, you can see they're going to get better as they keep doing this. The text, just the dialogue really jumps out as just looking kind of amateurish.
My first impression when I looked through it was that the font just didn't, the lettering just did not work.
Yeah, I don't know what font this is, but it's badly spaced. Some of the dialogue bubbles should be bigger, smaller. You know, I don't know. It in an otherwise okay, where you can see where it's going, just, they really should have gone back and redone that. It doesn't seem like a thing that would have taken too much work to do.
And one of the things for me as someone who primarily reads and then looks at the art, the lettering really stands out when it's one of those things where if the lettering's good, you do not notice it at all. You only notice it when it's not good or when somebody's doing a lot of tricks with it. And I don't mind if somebody's doing a lot of tricks with the lettering and the sound effects and stuff. But in this, it kind of brought it down a level. The other thing, as I was reading it, I read some of it on my e-reader because it was a PDF, so I could load it onto my e-reader, and it was awkward to read that way. But then when I read it on my computer screen, it was much easier, and I'm wondering if that's how it would be on paper as well, because the PDF just in an e-reader this is what it looks like on paper, and it didn't work.
I don't see how this would work as paper because it's not page format unless you're going to get it and read it sideways. But if you were to cut it in half, it would really distract. Most graphic novels we get nowadays, it's a wonderful spread, but when you put it into a book, that middle section cuts the art in half.
Well, I don't know how many webcomic books you've seen, but most webcomics where they're kind of doing their own format, they typically either have the books made to their specific size needs. So a lot of webcomic books are not your typical comic size, magazine size, trade paperback size. They're actually custom sized, made. They typically do Kickstarter, print on demand offers a lot of size options. So this may well be a book that's bound on the left-hand side with the wide pages. I don't really
which
have
would
an
make
issue
better
with the
sense.
format. Yeah.
I didn't have the issue I had with the format was more reading it in my e-reader was it was awkward and it didn't work, but on a computer screen it was perfect.
That's okay. The last headline I saw before we started said that people are banning their e-readers going back to real books. So once again, Strode, you'll be a dinosaur in the world.
Well, yeah, but one of the points that Joe made about how it drops you in the middle of the story, I don't mind that as long as you pick up the characters and pick up the situations pretty rapidly as you go along. A lot of TV shows now do what they call a cold open, which is, boom, here's this. All right, we're going to introduce you to the characters. And as I was reading it, I got an idea of who the characters were because they were very well designed and very differentiated. But I didn't really get a grasp of who they were for a while because of being dropped into the middle. You've got a whole world you've built. And we've got to pick up the world. We've got to pick up the fact that there are alien races. We've got to pick up all this stuff and introduce the characters. And for me, I think it would have been better to have sort of an introductory section where here's who these people are, here's why they do what they do. I didn't catch names until much later in the book.
The characters appear to be Angelina Jolie, Croc from Batman, and Carmen Sandiego in a bustier.
And, the guy in the hat. The
guy in the hat. And I don't really this is a really minor nitpick, but I'm just so tired of every, it's such a cliche at this point, but the strong female character. And it's like, can anybody design a female character that's more interesting than just looking like a, magic supermodel in a cape? Or, she's the hooker with the heart of gold. There's the men got beards. This big fighter guy's got a big scar across his face. He's obviously not human. He's got these kind of wide set eyes. Why are the other two main characters just something that looks like, a character out of a video game? It's not very creative,
I have another question with this stuff, and I don't know if we have anybody here that can answer it, but we got two PDFs. One is what I would assume would be a graphic novel, like I said, 100-plus pages. The other one was a comic book format. Now, the question I would have, and Jin might be the best person to ask, as you're trying to catch my attention, and I know absolutely nothing about what you're doing, is it better to have a graphic novel like this? This graphic novel's got to be what, $10 to $20 versus
it is $16
versus a comic book that would be anywhere from $3 to $5.
However, the digital version of the comic, and we'll talk more about it then, but with the second book we're going to review, there's a print version and then a digital version, and the digital version is cheaper. But with Impure Blood, this is one where you can read the entire story online. And they do a page a week. And then they've taken 100 pages, put it into a book, and have it available as a book.
So like Girl Genius or Love and Capes, things like that. They do it online.
That was the first thing I thought of when I saw this, was that it kind of looks like it kind of looks like a bargain bin Girl Genius. I can kind of see, I don't know if it's true or not, but I can kind of see Phil Folio's kind of influence, particularly in the character designs, but it's also kind of got that kind of a technological steampunky vibe to it. It doesn't seem to be that original of a story. You've got your big gladiator guy and hot chick number 1 and hot chick number 2 help him escape by distracting the guards with their boobs, and then they go to a tavern and there's some arguing, and maybe it picks up, but, Angelina's got glowy eyes and can do some kind of magic, and I don't know.
So the question, though, is, and we might have to hope creators listening and can tell us, what gets better response from someone like me? I guess, Cory, I'll ask you this because you're more of a comic book guy. Would you drop $16 on a graphic novel like this, or would you be more willing just to pay like $3-4 and pick up a comic of it?
If we're starting from reading a web strip to buying the paper version or whatever, for me, a web strip, if it's something that I want to have and hold and know that I'm going to be reading more than once, I'll buy a paper version. However, certain strips work well in comics. I'm going to use Liberty Meadows. Liberty Meadows was a newspaper strip that was also available online, but Image published it as comics. And I loved picking up that comic only because the big books weren't available. Once the big books became available, I'm not buying the comic anymore because I'm someone, I'd rather have a big chunk of it than paying $4 for 30 pages every month.
Okay, but if you're wandering down the aisle, say at Fall Comic Con, and here you got all these creators there, would you be more apt to want to pick up just a graphic novel or a comic book?
Most webcomics don't deal in single issue comics that way. Most webcomics do the graphic novel trade paperback format.
I'm just saying, what if it's not a webcomic? What if it's just someone who just designs comics? And because we got plenty of guys, like the guys who do Colliders, they do the comic and then eventually they hope to do a graphic novel or put it all together.
What draws me is more of a mini comic, because when I'm going through Artist Alley, I'll be blunt, I want quantity. I want to pick up something from everyone to get a good idea of what's out there. And in your mini comic, say, by the way, here's how to get more. That mini comic is an advertising. Sell it for $1 or $2. I'll pick it up. Butch, when he would go to Artist Alley at the bigger conventions like Chicago and stuff like that, all the money he had, he'd be in Artist Alley buying the mini comics. And that's how he would come back to the shop and go, oh, man, you got to try this. Oh, this is really cool. When I went to San Diego, I had a box full of the little mini comics and stuff because it's okay. I want to try a little of everything, and what I like, I'm going to go back and get more of. Now, Jin, on the other hand, is a vendor, and she could probably talk more to what sold better, the smaller stuff or the trade paperbacks she used to do.
Oh, I sold way more of the trade paperbacks. I mean, I know that it's kind of apples and oranges. They're different prices. I was when I had more of an audience than I do now, but I would take a pretty good couple boxes of books to an anime convention even and sell out, versus peddling the mini comics. I mean, I think for most people, they like the glossy cover, the colorful cover. They prefer that to kind of the grittier indie vibe of like the ash cans and the mini comics, like what I sell now. I'm actually waiting to just have one giant book rather than even trying to put out, 4 or 5 more typical, trade paperback size. But I would say, even at the higher price point, probably that the graphic novels sell better, just because it looks like a cleaner product that people are going to want to have on their bookshelf, looking shiny and in a row with all the other books.
Now, are you talking people that know you and are coming to buy it specifically, or just people that wander by and catch whatever in your display catches their eye?
I sold most of the people that already know me that buy the book would either pre-sell to get like a signed sketch copy, or they would order it online. So most of my convention business is typically people who are unfamiliar with my work. There is some, but it's typically to new readers.
So, Impure Blood Volume 1. Joe, buy, borrow, or pass?
Read it online.
Okay. Jen, buy, borrow, or pass?
I would say if you're into like these kind of fantasy stories, you may want to read it online and keep an eye on it. I would pass. It's not really my thing. But like I said, I can see there's a lot of potential here. They really need a little more polish on the art, clean up the fonts, and I don't know, maybe doing a little more with the main characters so they're not quite so cliche.
For me, I don't think that I would buy these as yet for the same reason. They're still growing. But I will say one thing about the web strip is I looked at some of the later web strip and their production value has really shot up. One of the things I really like about the current strips are that a lot of web strips, when they do color, especially when they do computer color, it's so garish and it overwhelms the art. The way they've got the color and the way they do their layouts is much better than the earlier ones. One of my problems were the layouts in that there were some pages where there wasn't good panel flow. I could tell what to read next, but it's like, why is this panel really tiny if it's supposed to be highlighting a character, and I don't know what that is, and it's a color. They would use color to like kind of pop it in the background, and there were some pages that were just way too text dense. But when I jumped ahead to kind of see what they're doing, they've really learned a lot. It looks better. I didn't dig into the story to see how far the story had progressed because I don't want to just jump ahead and skip over like 2 years worth of stuff. But I think if you go to the page, and that's impurebloodwebcomic.com, start at the beginning, read through for a bit. If you like what you're seeing, go ahead, pop ahead to see how much they've improved over the years. But for me, it's a borrow, which for a webcomic would be I'm reading it online. The next one that we were given to review is Moon in the Trees by Ronald Montgomery. And he was at the convention but didn't get a chance to come over. He has his own publishing company called Inverse Press. And his books are available both online, available to buy as digital for $1.99 or as print for $3.99. And the one he gave us was a series of short stories that he'd written, some of which had been published elsewhere. Did either of you get a chance to read it?
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, I read it.
Joe,
what was your opinion of it?
Well, the problem is that it's an anthology, so you've got, what do we got here? 5 different stories. And the quality really changed from story to story. The one overall arc is this is one depressing book. There did not seem to be a happy theme in any of the stories. And unfortunately, I just wasn't in the mood for it. And I might have to come back and revisit it, but I wasn't too happy with much of this stuff. Start with the first one. Let's see, what was the story? It starts out...
It's set in World War II.
Yeah, and it took me a while to figure what the hell was going on there. It took me a while to figure out who I was supposed to be rooting for. It took me a while to figure out, okay, the Russians are the good guy, the Germans are the bad guys. Even as I got to the end of the story, and this I'm going to be basically, if you want to toss a spoiler warning, I'll go for it. I didn't understand why there was such animosity towards the dog, who seemed to be the central character of the story. Had a hard time following who was who, hard time following which army was which army. I did not like the lettering. It's just, the story just, I don't know what the point of this story was. It was just, if this is, again, maybe the writer can tell me, but it was a total failure to me, at least the first story.
I'm really digging the art on here. Well, I'm just going to make my comments before you move on to the next one, because I'm looking at it while
Yeah, because if we should take it by story, because that seems to be the way this works.
I really, I see what you're saying. It is difficult. There needs to be some way to better differentiate the characters from one another. But I'm looking at, I think this is a panel on page 6 of some torn down buildings in the rain. There's some really nice art in here. I really like the use of the sketchiness and the lights and darks and black areas. But it's just, I see what your complaint about the lettering, the font. I don't know if this is the resolution it's scanned or what's going on here, but the font's kind of janky. It's kind of scratchy looking. But there's a lot of really nice use of color. It's not overdone. There's a lot of yellows and greens. So I'm liking the art on this story. I don't read comics, so I'm mostly critiquing how it flows. But there's good stuff here.
Talking about the art, I agree with Joe that there needed to be more differentiation between the two armies. But the artist has good layout skills, and there's a sequence at the bottom of page 9 where the dog is running through gunfire that I really, really liked until you get to that middle panel. Because I could see what the artist is trying to do, but that middle panel just kind of turns the camera around and then back, and then turns the camera around and then back. And I think it would have been better if the camera would have been stationary through the whole thing. just because the first time you read it, you're like, well, what's happening? What's happening? Is the dog zigzagging? Is the dog doing this? Is the dog doing that? But I could see what was trying to be done, because I did like how they used the lettering, and I talked about how I like effects and lettering. They used the lettering to show that the dog is getting closer to the gun.
That dog is looking smug as hell in that last panel there.
Yeah.
I think that's called the 180-degree rule. You're not supposed to flip the point of view back and forth like that.
No, you're not. It disorients the reader.
Yeah.
And then it was done. The story was done. I was like, is this a sampler book we're looking at, or is that the whole point of the story?
That is a short story, and as I read it, I stepped away because I read all of the short stories, and there are things I like about all of them. But there's something that writers talk about, and that is when you write your first novel, when you get it done, you take it outside and you burn it. Because you've got a lot of really shitty writing in you that you need to get out. And you never want anyone to see it. And the other thing about a short story is a punch. It's right like that. It's just quick. You make one point, you walk away. That's it. Think of the great short story writers that still resonate. O. Henry. Everybody knows O. Henry, Gift of the Magi. There wasn't a lot of characterization. There wasn't a lot of extra stuff. It's okay. Here's the plot. They're both poor. They sell their most beloved possession to buy something for the other person. And that thing that they bought was to heighten that beloved possession. Boom. That's it. One of the greatest short stories of all time. Repent Harlequin Said the TikTok Man by Harlan Ellison. There's no characterization. There's no this. There's no that. It's set up the world, build to the plot. Build to the twist. Boom, there's your twist. The difference between a novel and a short story is a short story is a quick punch, and a novel, you get to know character, you have theme, you have you have scenes, you have subplots, you can have ancillary characters. With a short story, it's boom, you build to the end. The first story built to the end, but because of how the story was constructed, it undercut that so that punch at the end didn't hit. Part of it was because you had to go back and say, okay, who are the Germans and who are the Russians? And part of it was that you really didn't get the idea of, okay, the dog did save this person. Okay, the dog saved the person. What's the twist? What's the punch? You're missing that. You're missing that the end, so that when the first time you read it, you're going, okay, everything turned black and white, and it's set in a different time, and okay, what happened? When you do a short story, it should never be like that. A short story should be a full stop. And in a lot of these, the short story wasn't a full stop. So the writer, while he's got some stuff that I like, he's got to learn more. He's got to be a little more constructive and be a little more direct about where he's going. Overall, the fact that the subject matter was all over the place really, for me, distracted, because it's okay, this is a war story. And then the next story is
big zombie flight.
It's like Attila the Hun with zombies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say I am really digging the art on this second story.
Yes.
They could use a little bit more, it's a little muddy in places. They could have used a little more highlighting, a little more white, but I'm like the use of halftone here. The art in the second story is just, this is my thing. But I'm a whore for black and white.
The story was, I'm still confused by it. It starts out, she's with her dad, and I think the dad died, and of course you know who the bad guy is because he has his hat, and then his hat disappears. Now the bad guy looks like the dad, and they run into zombies, and I'm still not sure if the bad guy / dad died, and then somebody picked her up at the end who might have been the bad guy from the beginning, or it might have been her dad with her hat back on, and So rather than run away with the dad, she's running away with the bad guys, and maybe that is her dad. And what was the whole point of running from the bad guys if the bad guys were the zombies and you were only saved by the bad guys you were running from? So essentially you're in the beginning, the end of the story's where you started in the beginning and everything was just kind of useless. Or maybe, actually, I don't think it was her dad because the guy's saying your father waits a lucky man to know such love. Whatever
there's a lot of.
We'll go with the art because I thought that, and I'm being harsh with the story, but I did go back to try to look to see, okay, what am I missing? What clues am I missing to figure out who's who? Like in the first story, the uniforms were the same, so I had to follow along with the word balloons. Oh, okay, the Germans, the bad guys, because it's World War II. This one, it's still, it's nice art, but I can't tell one good guy from the bad guy from the guy with his hat, without his hat. And so I was never sure who to root for other than, the female who I don't know at the end. Was she prisoner now of the people they were chasing, but they did get away from the zombies?
So I would say this is so dramatic. There's a lot of dramatic posing. There's a lot of dramatic action. You've got the use of black and white, nice shadows, nice highlights. If you use a little more highlights, it's a little muddy in places. There's a lot of unnecessary dialogue in here. I think This story would actually be greatly improved. You do two things. Remove a lot of the dialogue and just let the pictures tell the story, And two, to do as Joe suggested and differentiate the characters better. So I don't need names to follow along. I mean, you have this dialogue, this characters, they're looking at each other. They have really nice, disgusted looks on their faces. She's saying, please, no, please. She's kind of butting up against his chin with the back of her hand. She's got a fist. He's grabbing her cloak. You didn't need that dialogue in there. The panel is actually stronger without it. You have him in the next panel. With his mouth open? That didn't need to be there. She's giving him a dirty look in the next panel. This would actually be stronger without the unnecessary dialogue. She's punching him and saying dog. The dog doesn't really add anything to that. She's already got his teeth flying out. You didn't need that there. I think actually if with the right work done to it, you could probably almost entirely tell this story without any dialogue at all. Because the action does a really good job. It's where you can't tell this male character from this male character because they're both wearing almost identical clothes. They both have almost identical facial hair. There's nothing there to help you tell them apart.
And to that, to me, the page that works best in the story is page 15, which has the least amount of dialogue.
Yeah, and it's got this great middle panel of these Mongolian or something like zombies coming out of the water, and their eyes are white, and this is just really well done. So I really think there's really potential for something good here. I would love a whole book of this if it was easier to follow. And maybe they cut down on the dialogue. And to me too, I don't want to complain about this constantly, but it almost feels like the font isn't really meshing with the artwork either.
The next story was my favorite written story least favorite art story.
You skipped the nice pinup of the Wolf Princess. That really threw me off because I thought that was part of the next story.
Wolf Princess?
Yeah, the wolves
Page
in the
20.
Mountain in the background and the little girl who obviously is the Wolf Princess.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was a nice pinup.
That's not what I really think of when I hear the phrase pinup.
Well, in comics, when you have a page that's just, somebody just drew something and dropped it in, that's kind of what they call it.
We had Tits McGee from the other comic if we needed that.
All right. Anyways, continue, Cory. I just didn't want to pass the picture.
Stories from the Desert, thematically, worked for me very, very well. The layout worked for me very, very well. It was a mood piece. It was a very personal piece. As a short story, there was you got to stick the landing. and I'll get to the problem I had with the ending, but the art looked like something. There's no way for me to say this in a kind way. It looked like something that an art student in high school drew for a final project. The buildings, stuff like that were nicely photo referenced, but the faces on the people and the bodies on the people just they just didn't work for me. They seemed very crude, and not in a storytelling crude kind of way, in the artist couldn't do better kind of way.
Right. There's a certain charm to a poorly drawn, poorly drawn isn't even the right term, but like a sketchy or minimalist character design. And I'm looking at this and I was trying to figure out like what was unsettling me, and I think you hit it, is that I was going to say the buildings and some of the perspective and scenery is very well done, and they had to have probably not traced from a photo, but heavily referenced, real objects and everything, and the people are just kind of scribbled in. They have an uncanny valley quality to them where you can tell an artist understands concepts of construction and having weight to the characters, and then deliberately kind of turns that on its side to draw a certain way.
Yes.
But this is very kind of, I hate to use this word, but it's ugly. Some of it's very visually unappealing. There's a certain ugly aesthetic where you can like it even, but this is kind of just, and again, I see some use of cut and paste here, and I'm going to harp on that because I just can't stand cut and paste. And even I see in some panels here, there's like a liquor store.
Yes.
Or something, and they've actually like grayscaled photos to use as the background, and the inked characters just kind of disappear and mesh into that background, and it's not a very good effect.
And on the last page, the art really bugged me because, first off, we're not seeing the lead character's face at all, which, okay, that's a storytelling thing. I can understand why you're doing it. I disagree with that. But when you get to that last panel, and the lead character, the one who's telling us the story, is standing there, and the Salvation Army's bugle is obscuring half his face.
Yeah, I just saw that.
There's got to be a better way. If you want to make this an anonymous person, it shouldn't be so in your face what you're doing.
He's the new Dick Tracy villain. He's Trumpet Face. Haven't you heard of him?
And again, as I was reading it, it was building up to, okay, he's back in the town he grew up in. He's doing a business meeting. He's kind of put his life together, but he's where he grew up, thinking about this one of the worst moments of his life. We don't get a feeling of triumph. We don't get a feeling of loss. It's just, And I always say the difference between a typist and a storyteller, and in many ways the difference between a good story and a story that's not good, both of them are a bunch of stuff that happens, but a storyteller knows that you need to build to a finale. And this just kind of ended.
Well, it wasn't even that it ended. It jerked to an end. I mean,
yeah.
This was like pointless. It was like, look how bad life is. Snapshots of shit would have been a better title for this one. I mean, where it lost me was, okay, and I'm just going to read it. So a lot of shit's going on, blah, 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 blah. Now, if you're going to make the Salvation Army thing work, it's just, in Phoenix, we moved into the Salvation Army. Put something like, this was the first time we had any stability in a long time.
Yes.
Okay, that would have foreshadowed the end when he was busy being Trumpet Face. But where it really lost me, and I was, okay, it took me a while to get used to this snapshot of shit. Okay, this guy's on the butthole end of life. I'm just going to follow along and look how bad his life is. But here's where I lost it. Weeks later, a man broke into our room while my mother was at work. He kidnapped my sister. She fought him off outside. ... We returned to my father in Kansas. The father's a shitbag. Why did you return? What happened to the sisters? Cops never found her? Oh, no, her body was lying there. No, she got away. Didn't know. What do we find out in the next panel as I'm looking forward? 29 years later.
Yes.
I'm like, dude, you lost me right there. That was, you had me along with your, okay, let's hear how bad your life is. You would have saved it had, instead of the last panel there, Dear Salvation Army, thank you for saving me. Bam, you put a bullet in your head. That would have made the story a little more palatable to me.
For me, it would have been if, okay, how is this connected? Again, we had something bad happen. Show the Salvation Army as the sanctuary where you started rebuilding your life. We didn't get that. It was, okay, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened.
Kill yourself.
And one of my favorite essays ever is by Michael O'Donoghue called How to Write Good. And he says, don't worry about an ending. When you're done writing, just put, and then they were hit by a bus. And, of course, he ends the essay with, I have much more to tell you about writing good, but unfortunately I was hit by a bus. In this, we didn't even get hit by a bus. It was just, oh, yeah, and then I got a job, and I went back to where I was, and I saw somebody who looked like my dad, and thanks.
Artist ran out of paper.
That would have made better sense.
Or the writer had to deliver a 9-page story.
Well, the cops came and arrested everybody. Threw the king in the car and drove off. Turn off the camera. Go away.
But the thing I want to say is, until you got to those last 2 pages, you had me. I was invested. I wanted to know what would happen. Despite the art, the sequence about not being able to buy gum. It's okay. You've really brought me somewhere. I feel a lot of empathy for these people. Now, again, stick the ending. And he didn't stick the ending. The next story, I tried a couple of times. I just couldn't read it.
I call that the left turn, right turn, left turn, right turn. I don't really give a flying hootie about any of these people here.
This looks like what I typically more associate with mainstream comic art. You've got some kind of really, really loose inking, kind of made up for with the color. It's kind of the color holding everything together. I'm not a fan of that style. That's one reason why I don't read a lot of comic books.
And in all the other stories, I kind of knew what he was going for. In this one, I never quite knew what he was going for, because it's okay. Especially when it's all right. They're going to watch this Marilyn Monroe movie that doesn't exist because it's 1965. She died in 62? So it's okay. Are we going to get an alternate universe? Where are we going with this? And I think it's one of those where there was an idea in this story that he couldn't communicate. And I didn't get the stuff about the little girl stealing the makeup, and then, the parent really mad at the little girl till she says, I'm sorry I took your makeup, and then, again.
Actually, I got that because being a father of a little girl, my daughters did that. So to me, that actually made sense, because that's just something they do, because they want to be like the adults. They would go into my wife's purse, grab the makeup, and then when my wife would be looking for the makeup, where is it? I'm sorry. And I'd be like, how can you be mad at that?
But again, out of all the stories, this is the one that I just couldn't follow. Again, it was a bunch of stuff that happened, and I didn't feel a thread that pulled me through.
I like the panel with the guy getting shot. This is kind of like in half black and white and half color.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The black and white stuff is actually pretty nice, but I'm just not liking the color.
See, to me, when the main character just walks out, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, we're led to believe she kind of cares about this little girl. That's the gist of the story. No, she just left as soon as she could. And then at the end, I searched and searched and I didn't find Libby again. Why would you care? You walked away.
So long, suckers.
Yeah. Oh, now I feel bad about it. Maybe somewhere in between, I climbed inside the cab and clutched my purse and what was left in it. And I searched and searched. You could have said something. I wondered whatever happened to her. But you were interspersing the Marilyn Monroe thing. And, again, I like you said, Cory, I don't get the two. I was looking for analogy maybe.
One of the things that I talk about in comics is other people say Claremontisms when they talk about Chris Claremont, who uses the same phrases over and over again. For me, when I say somebody is Claremonting, it's they have put something in a story and you are supposed to be the one to figure out what the connection is because it's been in their head so long, they forgot to tell you what it is. And I think in this story, the writer had something in mind that he just didn't communicate. So this is where, and I find this a lot with a lot of self-published stuff, you kind of need an editor to go, wait a minute, what are you trying to do here? Let's figure out how you can communicate this. And in this story, it wasn't communicated. Then the last story is another World War II story. This one with zombies that jumps between people at home and people over in Japan where the U.S. military is fighting zombies. Out of all of them, this was the one that was the easiest to follow, and the art was inconsistent because there are parts of it, especially toward the end, where I like the art a lot, but earlier in the story, the characters are drawn almost cartoonishly.
Yeah, I'm kind of digging the art on this one.
Well, for me, it's the fact that it goes back and forth. I remember when I first read it, on page 32, that middle panel, the flashback panel, it was like, wow, that's something out of Beetle Bailey. And then later on, it gets more realistic. The artist gets much better as they go on.
There's a little bit of manga influence in here, it looks like.
Yeah. But the last two pages, I think, last 3 pages, I think are very well done. And for a zombie story, I thought this is the one of the short stories where I think he hit all the notes he wanted to.
So are these all written by the same guy with different artists? What's going on here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they're all written by the same guy. Many of them these are reprints from other anthologies. I think the only one that's original to this is the Too Soon for Thunder, which I believe is the name of the last story, right?
That was the second to last story.
Okay, yeah.
Thunder was the one with the chick.
Cold Country's the last one.
Okay.
Guy comes home from fighting Japanese.
Go around the room again. Buy, borrow, or pass. Joe?
Assuming I ran across this guy at a con, I would probably have bought it because it was just a comic book. I'm more willing to drop $4 to $5 on a comic if it's somebody I don't know. I did like the cover. I thought the cover was interesting. It covered every bit of the story. And if even though I was pretty, I don't know, in my mood, hypercritical on everything, I still would have felt good for spending the $3 to $4 just because I helped, a smaller creator, I guess. That's usually how I feel when I buy these things. Even if I don't like them, I'm glad I dropped some money with you.
Jin? Buy, borrow?
I would pass, and I would browse through the book and try to find the artists for Zombie Attila the Hun, and what is this, Zombie World War II soldier in the last story. I think these two are really the standout. The rest of the stuff I could do without.
And for me, it would be a borrow. This is something where online, and I have the website up here. It's inversepress.com. If you buy the digital, it's $1.99. I think if you drop it down to 99 cents and offer it as hey, this is some stuff I've done somewhere else. This is kind of a sampler of what I do. I'd pick it up And I would give the criticism that I'm giving now. It's like, you've got some good ideas. You're on your way. But you need some input, you need some editing, and you need to learn story construction. Because a lot of people, when they're starting writing, story construction seems to be the thing that is kind of the last thing that falls into place. And which is bad, because it's really the thing that can kill you. You can write crappy prose or not have good characterization as long as your structure is good and people can follow along. Those are the ones that we were sent to review. And as we talk about in the ads, if you want to send more stuff to review to us, it's cory.strode@gmail.com. I was given a couple of books at the convention to review. I'm going to put down the microphone and go grab them, okay?
Are we going to talk about this webcomic that you emailed to me?
Which one is that?
Those shadow people?
I did not get a chance to look at it, so if you would like to review it.
I don't need to review the comic. I'm not reading this. Because, oh honey, no. This website is terrible. I'm just gonna, you can go get your books and I'm gonna tell them how to fix this. I'm not even gonna read this. Because, number one, there's a link up at the top and it says issue 1. And I click on it and I see a comic. And I'm looking at it and there's some kind of music thing at the bottom, which I don't really care. Like, people that put music on web pages are generally douchebags. But it's optional. It doesn't autoplay, so I appreciate that. But I'm looking at the comic and there is no button that I see anywhere on here to go to the next page. So, I mean, that is like number one webcomic fail. I'm not going to go through a list of links. I'm not going to download your PDF. I'm not going to navigate around. If I click on issue 1 and I'm looking at your first page and I can't find within about 5 seconds the link to see page 2, you've lost me. And I guarantee you're losing a lot of people. So first things first, I appreciate you're trying to do the dynamic layout. I'm looking at this on full screen. There's like a title, kind of a cover graphic on the left. There's a page on the right. That's great. If I shrink the window, the title image moves above the comic. That's cute. Oh, I just found it. Buried in the title graphic, there is an arrow that's completely unlabeled that says issue 1, page 2. So no, you need some arrow keys directly under your comic. Minimize that title graphic. You need to make everything more compact. And I only found that because this is about the 3rd time I've clicked on this website and looked for it. So if you want people to read your comic, you need to make clear navigation buttons. You know, you don't need the comments field. You don't need donate, on every single page unless you can incorporate it into the site design somehow. I see you've got your Patreon link. It's like, y'all really you put in the cart before the horse here. You need to get some clear navigation. If you want to have a fluid web design, that's great. But if I minimize the window, most of my screen is taken up by this title image that's going to show every time I load a new page. So yeah, I mean, Cory can come back and read this later. I'm not going to read this because the navigation is too tedious to get through. I mean, there's a lot of webcomics out there now, and I say that as a person that makes them too. You have to have this in a reader-friendly format, and that's going to include clear navigation, having some arrow keys, an easy way to skip to the front, the back. If you have a story-driven comic, have a way to skip between storylines, story arcs. It looks like if you click on the comic, you can actually go to the next comic, which is good, but again, usually there's some kind of text that says click to read the next comic or something. Not all comics do that. Not everybody's going to assume that comics will do that. I look at a web comic, the first thing I'm looking for is like those navigation keys, and they're just not here. And I really, the design isn't working for me. So I would work on having a more user-friendly website, more than anything before you really work on anything else.
One of the things for me with a webcomic, and I don't read a lot of webcomics because I I don't have time to read all the stuff I want to read. I don't have time to watch all the stuff I want to watch. With a webcomic, it needs to be intuitive. If I have to think about what to do next, I'm probably not going to.
Right.
Very well said.
And web pages are like that. One of the things that has really, and I'll bring up Facebook, people will have lists. And I like lists. When I was a kid, one of my favorite books was The Book of Lists. They're fun. It's little, basically it's infotainment. It's, here's 20 movies that went disastrously over budget. Okay, if I click on it, I'd like it all on one page, but I understand you can't do that because you live on ads. But if I have to search around to know where to go to see the next part of the list, I cannot leave that web page fast enough.
Well, I'm looking at this, and okay, so I load the front page of their website. If I minimize my window so that it's not, they're doing this dynamic page thing. So if I'm looking at like half the screen resolution, that's going to be the size of your tablets, your mobile phones, and that kind of thing. They have this giant square graphic with their title, and on the individual issues, I assume that's like their cover image. So, but every time I click on a comic, it's loading that title image. I do not want to scroll past that every time. You know, I mean, you could have it like, usually people put the cover in the place of a comic. So your page 1 in the archive would be your cover image because you're pretending like you're reading a book. You don't have this giant kind of like CD cover looking artwork at the top of every page. And when I maximize it, so I'm looking at it at full browser width, the navigation for the comic, and like I said, I only found this because I've opened this like 3 times in the process of talking about it. I can click on the comic to get to the next comic, but there's no indication that I need to do that, and that is not a feature that is universal to all webcomics. I only happened to notice when I moused over it, the cursor changed and saw the URL preview down in the bottom of the browser window and realized, I can click on the comic to get to the next one. I shouldn't have to think about that. You would have lost me already if I wasn't reviewing this, because if I just opened this and I wasn't actually like looking at it with a purpose, I would have just closed the window and gone on to the next thing. I don't understand how this works. I'm not going to work for this. You know, you need to make it easy for me. And their navigation, there's a little tiny left arrow and a little tiny right arrow in the bottom right of this cover image. And the particular one that I'm looking at is kind of this monochromatic yellow, and the arrows are white. And honestly, I didn't even see them until I'd been staring at this page for a couple of minutes. So, you know, if you guys are like not getting what you want out of your web traffic, your format is probably not helping you. You know, I mean, don't be angry at the messenger. I'm telling you, as a person who has been designing websites for a very long time and making webcomics since like 2003, you know, there's a pretty kind of standard format that people expect. You know, somebody that reads webcomics, they're going to expect things to be a certain way, and you can play with that to an extent. But the more you play with that, the more you deviate from that, you're doing it at your own peril. Right. Because you're gonna, you know, you're risking alienating someone who may be interested in your work, but your website's too quote unquote creative, or it's not what they're expecting. And there's a lot of competition now, you know, I mean, I want to read a webcomic. I could sit here doing nothing but reading webcomics for weeks. There's so many out there. If I have to work to read your comic, I'm probably not going to read it. Yeah. And if I don't want to do the work and I don't read it, you're never going to hook me as a regular reader. I'm not going to sign up for your Patreon. I'm not going to donate. I'm not going to buy a book from you. You lost me at the very beginning because I couldn't figure out an easy way, an intuitive way of what I'm used to get from page 1 to page 2 and page 3 of your comic. You know, you're looking at the front page and and when you load the first domain name, when you load the very front page of the website, it's a list. Like you said, it's a list down here like, oh, here's page 10, here's page 11, here's page 12, you know, and it kind of looks at first glance like I have to sit there and click on a different link for every page, even though that's not true. You know, you really need to go with a more conventional layout for this, unless you're going to just entirely rely on, you know, distributing PDFs and print versions of your comic. The end.
At the convention, we were given 2 books by Joe Spicer.
And, of course, Cory greedily snapped them up for his own.
Joe, you do know I can correct the record in editing, right?
Doesn't matter.
We do know Joe
All right.
would never actually read it.
No, actually, I am more prone if somebody hands me a physical copy to read it than a PDF.
The first one is The Way of the Cross, and it's a $5 comic. It's not a traditional comic. Well, I'll read the opening here. We hope this book inspires you through art and word to reflect on the way of the cross and accept Jesus' invitation to walk it together. Now, I am not a believer, but I don't mind people who use their belief to create art and story. And this book, when I first picked it up, it's the art on the cover is really, it jumps out at you, and the art looks distressed around the edges as if the comic has been beat up and handed around a lot. And I really liked that. I think $5 is way, way, way too expensive. But it's not a traditional comic in that the way it's laid out is there is information on the left page and a drawing on the right page. And it goes through the parts of Jesus' life that the writer and other people find very inspiring. And there's an essay on one. It's an essay with a drawing. And I have to say that even though I'm not a believer, I did like these essays. I thought they were very well done for what they are. Whenever I think religious comics, there are 2 comic types that come to mind. One is the chick tracts that everybody has seen, which are just these bizarre little...
Chick tracts are a national treasure. I will not hear anything otherwise.
Chick tracts are a frightening example of this weird religious sub. And when I was a kid, they were everywhere, and no one knew where they came from. And I still can close my eyes and imagine some of the things in those books that scared the shit out of me as a 9-year-old. Then there were the Archie religious comics that your grandmother would pick you up because she knew you liked comics. And they were done by the Archie folk. And they were kind of Archie stories, but then on the last page it would be, and instead of going on a date with either Betty or Veronica, we're going to church to have a date with Jesus. So they're very earnest. This was something that I would give to someone interested in your religious belief to kind of be, this is a, hey, this is why I believe this, and this is how it helps me. And as that, I think it does a very good job as a comic book. It's not a comic book. It's essays with drawings. The drawings are very well done. I really like the art. I really, really like the art. And the coloring is a lot of comic book coloring is really garish, as I talked about. This uses single colors to kind of pop off the page, and I really like it. The next one is an actual comic. It's called GOD, Global Order Decree. And I like the design and layout of the cover, but the actual drawing of the character does not work for me at all. Joe, when I give it to you, you'll see why. It's almost imagey how the character is drawn, in that he's got a leg that's pointing at the reader for no real reason. That's his calf is almost twice as long as his torso. So it was one of those where, if this drawing was better, I'd like the design of this cover. The first 3 pages are unreadable because of the coloring. It's a retelling of, let's see here, Revelation 13:12. and it's a drawn representation of those verses, and everything's colored over with this sickly red orange that really obscures the art and almost blinds you as you open the book. It then goes to a more traditional kind of futuristic manga style retelling of that part of Revelation. It's okay. That's what we used to think would be the end of the world. This is more kind of what it's really like. And there's a lot of manga influence in the character design and the drawing.
Why are you getting all these Bible comics?
The guy brought them over to us. That's what he publishes.
God's trying to talk to Cory.
Are you sure he wanted a review and not a conversion?
Well, if he gets a conversion, that's like major points in the afterlife.
Right? I know. You get like an extra pan of brownies after you die.
Exactly.
Or something
And without
person.
nuts.
No. I worked with evangelicals. You get an extra room in your mansion in heaven.
By the way, www.chick.com if you need any chick tracks. Apparently they have plenty
chick
of
tracks
them.
are amazing.
Free catalog, orders, videos, Android apps, iPhones. This stuff is gone high tech. I remember gathering these things up as a kid because first of all, I was religious, and second of all, they were free comics. And
I made a comic about this, but the only chick track I have ever encountered in the wild, in their like natural habitat, was at a gun show from a man selling tasers.
I've got two around here.
He had tasers and chick tracks.
But no,
I have found them in the lockers in every gym I've ever been to.
I think I'm going to order a bunch and just next con just pass them out.
I think I need to make a parody chick track.
Chick.com.
But this global
I would
order
have guessed would have
decree,
been a porn site.
Shit. We didn't manage to distract him for long enough.
I thought so, yeah.
well, I do want to finish up the review.
Okay, let him talk.
I want to finish the review. I know what he's trying to do with using just one color through the story, but it doesn't work. It obscures the art. It actually makes it hard to read, especially like the last 4 pages. I can't make out what's going on some of this stuff because it's just red, 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 red. If you want to see how to use duo color, there is a comic that came out in the 80s and then again into the 90s called Ms. Tree by Terry Beatty, who used to live in Minneapolis and has a phenomenal music taste, and Max Allan Collins, who's probably my favorite crime fiction author. They did a long-running series called Ms. Tree. It was done duotone, and they understood that when you use duotone color, you have to be muted with it, and you use it for emphasis, not to overwhelm the art. You use it to sort of highlight and almost shade the art. Joe, I'm going to give you these 2 books next time I see you, and you can look them over as well. For me, they're not aimed at me. GOD, I would have picked, I have it in the past.
It's not for you.
No, it's not for me. I have it in past. It would have been a borrow if not for the fact that the color just, I would need sunglasses on some pages, and then with the sunglasses, I wouldn't be able to see the page. And we've already gone an hour and 15 minutes.
Cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah,
So,
sponsors, blah, blah, blah.
So all the other stuff we would have reviewed, yeah, we're not going to get to it.
Oh, good.
Oh, no, there's one I'm going to review.
What?
Yeah, I actually read a few things to review, but I guess we'll wait and put them on for the next show. I did read one comic with the extent purpose of reviewing it here. The Colonel of Two Worlds, starring The Flash and Colonel Sanders. The plot is tied into the recent JLA storyline where apparently, oh gosh, I can't even remember his name. Colonel Sunders of Earth 3 comes over and starts to sell easy fried chicken, much to the chagrin of our hero, Colonel Sanders, who gets his umbrage up, his cane a-revving, and with the help of the Flash and Green Lantern, goes and kicks the living stuffing out of Colonel Sunders. And it is left open for a sequel because obviously Sunders is back on Earth 3 selling his easy fried chicken, And Sanders is thinking, you know what? I may just have to go visit over there and deliver an old-fashioned finger-licking ass-whooping.
Oh, God.
He doesn't say ass because obviously this is it. But on the back, there's a beautiful picture of the Colonel of Earth Prime, his inspection spectacles, his facial hair, the ribbon tie, the bucket of freshly prepared chicken with secret blend of 11 herbs of spices, his cane, useful both as a mobility aid and a defensive weapon, the chronometer, his poultry ring, the infinite pocket square, and, of course, the gravy pen. So, yes, if you can find one, run out and get it, because this is volume 75, issue number 25 of Colonel Harlan Sanders. Call it Kentucky Fried Justice.
Great, now I want chicken.
Well, then it works.
You know who doesn't want chicken?
Who's that?
These guys, our sponsors. This podcast and all the other podcasts that we have on the Solitaire Rose Network has sponsors. And our sponsors are, first, as always, our beloved DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com is the best web host in the whole known universe. You need a website. Come on, you know you need a website. If you're going to set up a store, if you're going to start writing, if you're going to start drawing, if you're going to start creating, if you're going to start selling, you need a website. So go to DreamHost.com, use the code KRAYZ, and get $20 off your first year. We have a new sponsor. That sponsor is Flaviar, Flaviar. Just go to the Solitaire Rose podcast website at crazycomics.solitairerose.com, where we're inviting you to join. It's a discovery service for spirits aficionados. You gain access to fine spirits at members-only prices. And if you use our link, you get a $10 credit when you join. Finally, if you're listening to this podcast, you are a good-looking person. And as a good-looking person, you cannot trust your skin to just any old razor. That's why we invite you to shave with the amazing razors from Dollar Shave Club. Every month, they send a box with your shave options. At the beginning of the week, hop in a fresh blade, get that fresh blade shave. It feels fantastic. It's just one of the many ways that I maintain my good looks, and you can maintain your good looks. So join us at the Dollar Shave Club. Their plans start at $3 a month, and they have a money-back guarantee. So if you want to join, just go to www.dollarshaveclub.com/KRAYZ. We love feedback. So if you'd like to give us feedback, you can send us an email at cory.strode@gmail.com, or you can call our voice line at 952-856-0519. Send us an email, drop us a message. We'll put you on the air, we'll answer your question. We love to interact with our fans. We've also got Facebook pages for the Solitaire Rose podcast, for the Crazy Comics and Stories podcast, and the upcoming Solitaire Rose novelcast. So go to Facebook, be our friend. We love friends. If you would like to advertise on Crazy Comics and Stories, Solitaire Rose Radio, or the upcoming Solitaire Rose novelcast, you can just send an email to cory.strode@gmail.com, subject advertising. Thanks.
Cool.
And then after we do that, I asked Joe, what's going on eBay?
Mine was better.
Yeah, I would have thought so. But
Joe,
since
what are
you
you
threw it to
selling on
me,
eBay?
well, Jen, as long as you asked.
All right.
A couple things. One that I'm endlessly fascinated with. I talked about this a number of podcasts ago. I had a book called Blood and Kisses. It was from Fantico in 1993 by a guy, Leif Jones. And we talked about it, but I had one that was signed by him, and then the backer board he actually drew a sketch on. And he only did 3 issues, obviously all in 1993, and then as far as I know, has never been heard from again. And I'm always curious about finding little gems like that, and we're probably reviewing a bunch of them now. I mean, people are going to look later on when we finally get to episode 3000 and go back and say, geez, where were all these weird comics and PDFs that these guys were reviewing? What happened to these people? They disappeared. This book came out during the black and white glut, and I wanted to get it to someone who would give a flying 2x4, so I sold it with free shipping, which means I really sold it for a penny or something, but it finally sold, so I was pretty happy about that. Another one sold was the Warrior Nun Arela number 3, the soundtrack edition. And I always wanted to hang on to this and open it up because it had 2 songs on it, Glad Habit and Monkeys on the Throne. That's who did the CD. And I was always curious to see how the music tied into being a warrior nun. But alas, I shall never know, for I sold it on eBay. But of course, it's never too soon to talk about the Midwest Comic Book Association's Fall Comic Con, October 10th, 2015. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Here we go. MSB Comic Con 2016 is coming. Over 250 creators. We're talking with one of them now. Over 100,000 square feet of comics, because it will be in the Minnesota State Fair Grandstand. May 14th and 15th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday. www.mcbacomiccons.com. I don't expect any other information until advance tickets start going on sale January 1st. Because from what I understand, both of these guys are in Odin's sleep, or I should say the 3 guys running it. Although we do have a interview with one of the guys coming up on the MCBA podcast that we recorded, and he gave us a sneak peek of what may be happening come Comic-Con 2016. But I'm not going to spoil it here. You know me, I'm not a spoiler.
Yes, you are.
Well, yeah, but not if it matters.
You just spoil everything, Joe.
I do.
You spoil pizza.
No, that wasn't pizza. We've already established that. It was some sort of mutated, garlicky, crusty thing.
Jen, do you have anything new for your stores?
No, I don't, and I saw you spam the links on the last show notes or whatever, so good enough.
Okay.
Add me on Facebook, buy something, don't, whatever.
When you open your commissions, let me know.
It's time for freaking and geeking.
But before we do that...
Jen, what are you freaking on? Oh, you mean besides the fucking pizza fries?
I was going to say Butch sent me his freaking...
Oh!
You're going to read something from Butch? Okay.
Yeah, but he's not one to, leave, huge soliloquies. Butch is freaking on people who don't show up to the podcast. Jen, what are you freaking on?
You mean besides the fucking pizza fries?
I
didn't
think they were fucking at all, but...
Whatever.
Maybe I ate it wrong.
Okay, this is probably punishment. I'm sure it is for something terrible I have done. But, I moved all the way here from Houston, and I threw away a lot of stuff. I left a lot of stuff behind I didn't want. I packed everything I own into a U-Haul trailer, and literally one thing broke, and I fixed it, and so far so good. And I've been getting back to drawing comics because people are telling me I should do that. And I cannot find the small spiral notebook in which I had written the rest of the Dollar Late strips. And I remember 2 or 3 of them, but I don't remember all of them. And I feel extra bad because the remainder of these strips were supposed to be like tributes to my friends. But I had written the scripts, jokes, whatever. And I was supposed to be drawing last night, and I spent probably at least 2 hours tearing through every drawer. All the boxes are unpacked, going through bags and, the totes where I keep my original art, and I've pretty much looked everywhere it could possibly be. I messaged Matt back in Houston and asked him if he could check, what remains of my office there. And I don't know if I accidentally threw it away. I don't know how I would have done that because, it's a bright fucking red notebook. It didn't look like any other notebook I own, and I know what was in it. So I don't know why I would have thrown it away, but I cannot find it anywhere. So I'm going to have to try to write down what I can remember and rewrite what I can't. And hopefully I can come up with something. And I'm sure this is punishment for something terrible that I've done. Joe, Why the fuck did you order me those pizza fries?
I didn't. They were on order before I got there.
But Cory said that you would eat them all and you didn't.
They're sitting in my fridge. What else do you need?
Enough about the pizza fries, Joe. What are you freaking on?
He's so rude. You and I we're finally talking like adults, and he just cuts right in.
I know.
Cory, I'm the messy one. I listened to the MCBA podcast that you did whip together. I'm the messy one. Jen, I need your help on this one. Now, you've been in my basement.
I have been in your basement.
Have you been to Cory's home lately?
Yes, I have.
Who's messier?
You can plead the fifth.
No. This is like the best dressed
man in comics. I'm trying to think of a good analogy for like two things being exactly the same.
How do you make it? Oh, I know what it is. You say, how do you make a shambles out of a shambles?
One's a hovel above ground and one's a hovel below ground.
And Cory says, I'm the messy one.
I'm biased to your house because you have a rabbit and your rabbit didn't fucking bite me.
He didn't bite you?
No, he didn't bite me.
I'll train him better.
It was adorable.
Attack Jen. He's a sweetie. He might hump your leg if you're not looking, but he's a sweetie otherwise.
Aren't you, Fidget?
That's pretty much all I'm freaking on. I'm the messy one. A2 Brutus. Cory, what are you freaking on? Who cares?
Jen, what are you geeking on? What are you loving?
You gave me a big fucking pile of comics to read.
I spent a little too much time thinking about it, and I said, I've got to quit thinking about it and just doing it. And we've both been so busy that I haven't been able to put them in the car. But yesterday, it was okay. Going to finally see Jen after 3 weeks. I'll just get them over there. And if you want, I could go into detail as to why I picked each one.
That's not necessary.
But I would rather have you talk a little about what you received and what your thoughts are.
Well, I haven't had any thoughts because all I did was take a picture of them for Instagram so far. But I'm going to read Milk and Cheese first, I've decided.
Joe, do you approve? Did we lose Joe?
Joe went to the can.
Oh, I'm just back from the can. What did I miss?
Were you eating pizza fries also?
There is a distinct after effect of these not quite pizza fries.
Too much information.
Oh, by the way, Butch says, tell Cory I said shuzbot.
Where the fuck was Butch last night? That's what I'm freaking on.
Butch was geeking on Hell in a Cell, The Walking Dead show, and Halloween.
I have to watch The Walking Dead now because, like, my Facebook feed is nothing but fucking Walking Dead shit, like, every Sunday night. And I asked somebody, like, should I watch The Walking Dead? And he's like, yeah, it's okay. You just drive over to somebody else's house to watch it every week, because it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's alright. It's a TV show. You can take it or leave it. Oh my god, I can't wait. Spoilers, I can't find out what happens. It's okay.
Yeah, he can't wait till it's on Netflix, obviously.
Yeah, I just got Netflix, so there's a whole new world of things for me to do that isn't drawing comics.
You mean you're not going to do like a lot of artists who, I got to do inking? I'm putting on a movie.
That's what I've been told to do, and usually I listen to podcasts, but
yeah.
But the problem is, like, and I'm putting like my favorite podcast, which is actually not the ones that I'm on, but is F+, which is people reading like terrible shit from message boards, and I can't actually listen to it while I'm working because I start laughing and it makes my hands shake. So it's kind of useless. I listen to it while I'm driving sometimes. So yeah, I have a tablet that's kind of an old tablet, but it can do Netflix and Hulu. So, I'm gonna watch Mad Men and I'm gonna watch Walking Dead. So I can kind of position the tablet at the top of the desk so I can glance up once in a while and kind of, yep, tablet's still there. I can hear the TV. Continue inking. What were we talking about?
Geeking.
Sounded like a geeking to me.
What are you geeking on, Joe?
I am editing Solo Joe. It's recorded.
What?
It's ready. I'm just going through, trying to tighten it up. Still not getting the hang of the level thing that Cory says is easy to do. But other than that, I figure I got another half hour or so of editing to do, and I will upload it to Cory. So hopefully next week you will have the first and maybe last Solo Joe. Cory, what are you geeking on?
I read some really good stuff for review, one of which I have already handed off to Jen. I've talked about it a couple of times, and that is Mad's Will Elder. It has all of the Will Elder drawn stories from the Mad comic book, and reading it through again, it just amazes me how wonderful he is as a mimic of other people's styles. When he draws the Walt Disney comic strip style, it's dead on but twisted. When he draws Archie, it's dead on but twisted. When he draws Bringing Up Father, it's dead on but twisted. And one of the things on Facebook is when you know, Will Elder has passed on, but when you friend him, whoever's running the page will put up a couple of pieces of original art every day. And the level of detail he would put in this stuff and the amount of background jokes, I don't know how he was able to get a page done in a month. It's so good. I have completely caught up on all 4 trades of Ms. Marvel. We talked a little earlier about how a lot of superhero stuff all looks the same. Ms. Marvel doesn't look the same. The art the art seems like it's drawn for younger readers, not in a kid way, but in this is not superhero stuff. This is more what would appeal to teenagers that are, not really comic fans. But what I really like about the book is that the lead character is so appealing. She's interesting. She's not perfect. She's not great at things. She's kind of a fangirl. She's not perfect at what she does. Jen talked earlier about how the Superwoman and that stereotype, she's not. She's kind of a much more realistic human being. And also they've talked a lot about how she's Muslim, but it's more about how American Muslims, the cultures that the cultural divide that they deal with, and it's handled in a very good way. But what I liked most about it was it's set in the Marvel Universe, but it's not a standard superhero book. It's not, okay, we're building up to a fight scene. It's more, okay, she's exploring her powers. She's kind of learning what she's doing. She's not in New York, so it's not, Dr. Octopus and the Lizard. It's other stuff. This is a book to give to kind of one of those teenagers who doesn't know about comics, but thinks that they're really cool because they've seen the movies. And I was really impressed because normally with a book like that, the first trade is really good and then it tapers off. But this sort of builds, and as it goes, I actually found I was reading it faster as it went because it was even more enjoyable and more fun to read. Speaking of Walking Dead, this season has been head and shoulders above previous seasons, and it's a series that's been good all along. The writing has taken this huge leap forward to where one of the things I've said is Mad Men is one of the best written shows, and Justified is one of the best written shows. Walking Dead, if you're paying attention to the structure and the foreshadowing and the different things they do, this is an intricately written, well done, deep show that's more than just, it's zombies, we kill zombies. No, it's much more than that. And again, it's really rare that a series gets better as it goes. Usually by the time a series ends, you're kind of, okay. X-Files is a great example. X-Files, the first 5 years, really great. By the time it was over, it's like, oh yeah, that's still on? I suppose I should watch the last episode. Okay, I see why it's ending. I think Walking Dead, partly because it's 13 episodes a season, and partly because they're almost learning how to do better as they go. The other big thing comic-wise is I cannot wait for Box Day next week, Joe. I get 2 omnibuses.
Omnibuy.
I get the Werewolf by Night omnibus, which is, 70s goodness, and it's stuff that I haven't read a lot of. But then the Hot Guy omnibus. And I purposely quit buying it as comics when I knew the omnibus was coming out because I want to read it all at once. So when that comes in, you can call, you can write, you can knock on the door. I'm not answering until I'm done reading that. Believe it or not, kids.
Which isn't the first time he's locked himself in the bathroom.
I don't read comics in the bathroom. They could get wet. Believe it or not, kids.
So you throw him a bone and he just throws it out the window.
Damn right.
I quit listening.
That's probably, you're very wise.
Pretty much. You two always.
I am wise beyond my years.
We've been talking funny books for an hour and a half. And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Imitation is suicide. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Chin?
What?
Should we hit your music?
No, you can do it this time.
I don't feel musically inclined.
All right. Hit my music, boys.